Welcome to Stockholm, Mr. Fonda.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
It's a pleasure to be back.
Oh yeah, you were here in 1971. You were telling me the story about the road trip.
Yeah. And remember, I was saying how I'd lost
Exactly.
my bag with all my identification, gold coins, watches, a lot of money value. And everybody would tell me, because I went around to all the clubs we'd been to the night before, oh, but don't worry about it. They'll find it and return it to you. I thought, I have to leave this evening for Copenhagen and I need my passport. If not, and, oh, they'll find it. I went and got a new passport, the American consulate, brought them a picture. It took 2 hours. I had a new passport. I had a new look too, totally crazed in my eyes. Full beard and long hair, which the other passport was rather clear. And we got to Copenhagen, beautiful hotel. They gave us the penthouse, just 2 guys, but this huge penthouse. And we signed in, went upstairs. There was champagne waiting very nicely. There was caviar, there was some vodka and some salmon. And we decided to have a toast, so a little champagne. Just as we were saying toast, the bell rings, the phone rang, and I said, yes. Oh, while you were checking in, we forgot to give you the stuff that came from the festival. I said, oh, yeah, well, send it on up. Okay, so up. And there's my purse. With all the gold coins, all the watches, all the money, passport. Now I have 2 passports. And I'm thinking, okay, how much can I sell this passport for? I can get some more film if I do that.
So Stockholm made a good impression, needless to say.
Absolutely.
Well, bearing in mind that was 71, that was then like 2 or 3 years after Easy Rider.
Yeah, I was 2 years after Easy Rider.
Do you have any favorable, memorable, or least memorable moments from that film, from making the movie? Because there's a lot of...
I don't know if I should say something or not. It was all pretty interesting.
Yeah, needless to say.
The first day of shooting, we were down in New Orleans, shooting the stuff on the street in Mardi Gras. And we were shooting in 16 millimeter. And the day started out at 6 in the morning. And by 6 o'clock at night, it had gotten so bad that all of us were ready to quit.
Really?
Except me, because, this is my little baby. I got back to the hotel room and I was washing the day off me because the day had been so bad. And I realized it's my birthday. I'd forgotten it was my birthday. It was Friday, the 23rd of February, 1968. And I was born Friday, the 23rd of February, 1940. So it was my 20th birthday, and on a Friday, too.
Exactly, a magical momentum.
Yeah, I thought, is this a birthday or a bad surprise? But it all turned out, in the long run, fine. It's just that first day was hell.
But I'm thinking, during that era in the 60s, you played quite a lot of characters with that sort of momentum, like Easy Rider, it was the Wild Angels, The Trip, and so forth. And you were very in character in all of them, of course. I'm just wondering, did they resemble sometimes also your personal lifestyle in real life during that era?
In fact, I recall at 14 years old, I heard Gary Cooper say to my father and James Stewart, Randolph Scott, and Joel McRae, they were all together, and my sister Jane and I were there because we were friends with Cooper's daughter Maria. And I remember them all talking about acting. I had no idea. I was 14. I had no idea about what my father did really and how much work it took. But I remember hearing Cooper say, well, if I know what I'm doing, I don't have to act. By the time I was 45, I figured that out. And I stopped acting, yeah. In Easy Rider, I knew the character so well I was obviously knew what I was doing, and that was not a surprise for me. But other than that, I was mostly learning a craft, and I'm glad to say that I am still learning.
Because I also know that you mentioned on the face-to-face with reference to the question of how do you maybe prepare for a role, you mentioned that quote, and also that it's finding a moment to fill, which I thought was such a nice sentence, because it's finding a moment to fill. Is that sort of your interpretation of acting in general?
For me, it was finding the moments which cannot be written. No matter how good the writer is, the actor has to find the moment and fill it. Not just find it, but fill it, which means there are certain things that happen that become characterization without words. And it might be discovered in the timing. It might be discovered in any other way. If you have an accident and nobody stops acting, you work with it. You play with, you make it part of the scene. The audience doesn't realize this has happened, but something happens to them.
Exactly.
That they're caught by something they don't know. It's that accident, and they're in the film.
That's
The
interesting.
moment you can be in a two-dimensional flat screen and reach out and touch the audience, this is big.
Do you have, I mean, during your vast career, do you have any moment like that that you remember that actually was an accident and then became an iconic scene?
Only because I'd spent a lot of time, if I were also producing the film, in the editing room, and then I could see it, be reminded, as the actor, when you've wrapped that scene, you've finished, you move right along. You don't try to recreate that moment. If you're only on one side, and now we're going to light and do that side, you don't try to recreate it because it's not an accident, then it's a contrivance. And that can be really spotted by an audience as being insincere.
I'd like to also raise the film that you were nominated for Best Actor in 1997, Ulysses Gold, because it's quite, you know, a stretch from Easy Rider, of course, not only in time, but also it's like you've changed place, because there you have a daughter who's into drugs and addiction and so forth.
And I have grandchildren.
Exactly. I mean, how is it playing that role is maybe a poor question, but did it have an impact on you?
Doing Ulysses Gold had a tremendous impact on me. It was the best time I've ever had making a motion picture.
Really? Wow.
I've made 78 motion pictures. Easy Rider was my 8th. And so I don't know what number Ulysses Gold falls in, but the character was so brilliantly written. The script was so brilliantly written, the descriptives. The writer, who was also then the director, who also operated the camera and edited the film, Victor Nunez, was just this gentle genius. Wow. And he's only made 5 films. That was his 4th one. He's fiercely independent, and he has his special crew that work with him. But none of that even came into the play for me. I don't decide this is a more important or a more interesting shoot because we're using Selexas or we got 16 cameras and we got all this time. You know, it's hard to describe. It's like describe love. Now you're shot down. Fortunately, we can't describe love. And fortunately, I can't really describe the process other than being kind of dry about it. But it's something that's magic.
Wow.
And if it weren't, everybody would try it. Believe me, there are more people would be wanting to act than want to build cars. Or, you know,
I don't doubt you on that.
because they think that it's this marvelous life and that we live such a glamorous thing and we have all this attention and fame. Especially from my position, I can say that fame means nothing. I was born famous.
Exactly.
I was born Henry Fonda's son. I had no idea who that was, but everybody else knew I was Henry Fonda's son, which was a terrible thing for me for a long time until I could step out on my own. But it's not about being famous. It's not about being seen in the world. You can't describe what it is. It's just a force that is stronger than you are that makes you want to perform. I think that I'll be very fortunate because in acting, there is no mandatory retirement age. I can act until I die, which would be wonderful.
What was it like working with your father?
It was hysterical. Wanda, Nevada is a fairy tale set in a modern Western background. And my dad came down to shoot for one day. And I arrived. I was directing and acting in the film. And I was the last one on the set because it was so hot and so difficult where we were shooting. I wanted to be sure everything was ready and ready to roll when I arrived. So there was no waiting time for me. And as I came driving into the set, I heard one of the assistants say, "He's in makeup and he's really angry." I said, "Oh, was that he with a capital H?" You know, are we talking about the kid? So he's in makeup and very angry. And I was with the cameraman and Michael Butler. He and I went into the makeup place. It was not a room, it was a little trailer in the middle of a dusty Grand Canyon. And he was going on about this beard which he had to wear, which was very funny, terrible. And he was upset about the beard. I said, "Dad, it's a fairy tale. It doesn't matter if the beard's looking phony. Here, now you're supposed to be chewing tobacco. And I know you're dying, and I don't want you to chew tobacco, so I've got this licorice," because I knew he loved licorice, "all ground up. You just put that in your mouth, you spit that out. The camera sees that as tobacco." Nope. He pulled up a bag of regular tobacco. It was Red Man. He said, "Cosby, Bill Cosby. Cosby gave me this, and I'm going to use it." I said, "Dad, you don't need it. This works." Nope. It was a very intransigent Taurus. That was my father, the 12th of May. So I looked at him, I said, "Well, in that case," I looked at what the makeup table had, and there was some oil, some spray oil, supposed to be putting sweat on, because it was so hot, the sweat would evaporate. So I grabbed the oil, and I said, "Close your eyes, Dad." Did his beard, then I started spitting at his beard. I took the licorice, spit at him. Then I went outside, came back with a handful of dirt, closed your eyes, and threw the dirt at him. And "Come on, Michael." And I said, "How about that? Here's Henry Fonda sitting in the makeup chair, and we're throwing dirt and spitting at him. This is hysterical." I held his nose, and I came up, and I started drooling, so I could get very close to his lips, like the staining of the chewing tobacco. Now I'm messing with my dad.
And improvising the scene, and the scene is already done, in a sense.
Well, he came up, and he did his scene. We had a wonderful time shooting, and because it was very tricky camera angles, we broke for lunch, and my father crashed, literally fell down in his dressing room, little small dressing room, smaller than this rug, half the size of this rug. And because he had been doing the chewing tobacco. Aww. Foolish man.
Yeah, you see, well, what
Wouldn't
goes on,
listen
you
to the
learn
director.
now, exactly.
He still saw his son, but I was the director. At any rate.
So you got the last word.
No, he got the last word. It was fabulous. About 2 weeks later, I got a letter from him. It was probably the 5th letter that I'd gotten from him in my life. And in it, he said many things. He'd hoped that the beard had been better. He wouldn't blame me if I took the scene out, but it'd be too bad because it would have been, quoting him, "such a gas." And
we shared a sense
he
of
said, "In my
humor.
41 years of making motion picture, I have never seen a crew so devoted to the director. And you're a very good director, son. And I want you to think of me as part of your company. And I love you very much."
Oh,
Oh, it was amazing to me.
Oh,
So that's what it was like.
lovely-
The one day I got to work with my dad, we connected so incredibly well.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
very touching to hear. Very touching to hear. Difficult to go on to another question after that, but I'm also wondering, during your career and your life, you have a very colorful life and career.
Yes.
As a person, as a father, as a husband, as an actor, what sort of lessons has life taught you, or something that you would like to share?
I think this is why I act, why I write, why I direct, because that's the way I share. But the real thing that happens is the acting itself. It's work, and that we get to work is fabulous. If we do it well, we get to work again, and it has nothing to do with prizes, and very little to do with the money. But it has a great deal to do with emotion.